Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Matt. Thanks for joining me today. So, we are finally discussing some military equipment from China. Now, I don't tend to talk about military equipment from China for a number of reasons, which I'm not going to particularly focus on in today, but one of them is that it's very, very difficult to get accurate research and topics to discuss on these vehicles because, first of all, China has a vast military hardware portfolio that is very difficult to keep up with, and modernization of their older platforms and making of new platforms is almost constant for China. It's very fascinating. However, it is really hard to get the research, cross-reference material to make it an accurate representation of military hardware from China. The variants, the different styles, the new equipment that they're producing almost every day is a lot for me to work on. But you know what? I decided let's tackle this today, and we're actually looking at a kind of interesting wheeled vehicle today. And China's modern military machine is built on a foundation of very adaptable and nowadays, for sure, highly modular platforms. And we're going to look at a deep dive of a armored vehicle of the Type 8. Yes, the Type 8 infantry carrier. This is a wheeled warrior that has become a bit of a backbone of China's rapid response forces. And in the video, we're going to explore everything a little bit from its development history, some of its combat effectiveness, and how it stacks up against some of the best IFVs of the world. Now, wheeled armored vehicles have taken the center stage in most modern conflicts, offering huge amounts of mobility, firepower, and that adaptability without the logistical headaches of course, tracked platforms, which we've talked about so many times on my channel. And China's answer to this trend is the Type 8 family, developed by Norinco. Now, I used to own a Norinco firearm, and many people I know here in Canada used to own Norinco firearms too. Unfortunately, most of them have been banned now. I actually own the M305, which was an M14 clone, and we do know that China is quite renowned for its clonism, right? It takes a platform from the West, tends to replicate it or at least adapt a majority of its components or its design features and create it to themselves. And you look, at the end of the day, I can't really discredit them for it. Yes, a lot of people get very upset at it, but why not? I mean, it makes sense on a tactical setting and a development setting. If you have the ability to be like, let's just copy what they did. If it works, it works. I will say that the M305 was definitely rough around the edges. Every Norinco firearm that I ever saw was extremely rough around the edges. Quality certainly wasn't at the forefront when producing those firearms, and I can almost guarantee if these vehicles are produced by Norinco, it's probably very similar. But from what I can see in a lot of this footage, it looks like a fairly robust and sound platform. I don't see anything that shouts, this is not high quality. Of course, the exterior of a vehicle is very hard to judge upon its actual features. When you start looking in the interior and the technicalities within the design of the vehicle deeper, it can show some flaws. But it's really hard for me, again, to say whether or not this vehicle has flaws or not because there's so little accurate information about Chinese military hardware, hence why I don't do videos on them. Now, Norinco has spawned nearly 30 different vehicle types from the single chassis around this family of vehicles. And it's built primarily around the ZBL-08 infantry fighting vehicle, which is what you're seeing in this footage. It's a design that has provided China with a mix of firepower, protection, and really good troop carrying capacity for their vast infantry capacity as well. They do have a lot of troops they need to push on the battlefield, if it came to it. This platform serves as a base for a wide range of configurations, including armored personnel carriers, command and control vehicles, fire support platforms, and even self-propelled artillery. What makes the Type 8, though, so significant? It's really China's first true attempt at a fully modular wheeled combat vehicle, an approach that Western nations have used for many years, and it's certainly been more prominent in vehicles like the Boxer of today. I think I've reflected this on my channel many times, that modular equipment is the big deal now. They don't want just a standalone platform, they want things they can customize and change as to whatever they want it to be. Its development reflects the PLA's growing emphasis on mechanized, rapid reaction forces capable of deploying to hotspots very, very quickly, either via air or by sea, while maintaining battlefield dominance. The vehicle family's combat effectiveness, export success, and growing adoption by other nations make it a compelling platform to analyze. But what's its strengths and weaknesses? How does it kind of compare to NATO's best IFVs, particularly in a wheeled configuration? And why has China chosen a wheeled platform over its traditional reliance on tracked vehicles? Well, we have to be looking at a bit of the design at heart. Okay, it's like many nations around the world, wheeled platforms are starting to become a lot more prominent. They want range, they want flexibility, they want the ability for it to be able to handle IEDs, which tracked vehicles tend to not be able to do. And of course, it be amphibious. As you can see on the back of these vehicles, they do have little propellers on there. And for China, this is a big deal because naval attacks are a big deal for China for obvious reasons, which I'm not going to get into for the political setting and conflicts that could occur, but we all know what I'm trying to talk about here. Amphibious naval assaults are very important for these vehicles. Now, at its core, for something that you want to be fast and dynamic in the infantry carrying world, it has 8 wheels, which are all independently controlled by an all-wheel drive system, and is very powerful with a 440 horsepower Deutz BF1015 M44 diesel engine. This power plant allows it to hit speeds of 100 kilometers an hour on roads and up to 8 to 10 kilometers an hour on water and 70 kilometers an hour off-road. This is pretty impressive, and being that it is amphibious, 10 kilometers an hour in water for a vehicle of this size, that's pretty good. Now let's talk firepower. The ZBL-8 packs a 30mm autocannon modeled after the Russian 2A-72, capable of engaging enemy infantry, light vehicles, and even low-flying helicopters. It's also equipped with a coaxial machine gun and an HJ-73 anti-tank guided missile, providing it with a punch against most armored threats. It is wire-guided, so it's not as prominent as top-down attack, but still gets the job done. It would not be used on an assault factor, purely on defense, I would say, but you've got to remember that there would be hundreds, if not thousands, of these vehicles at one time, and the number of anti-tank missiles you could launch from this platform is, well, a lot. Inside the vehicle carries 7 fully equipped infantry soldiers ready to dismount and engage in battle. However, I'm quite surprised of a vehicle of this size, it only carries 7. I was expecting at least 8 or potentially 9. It is a long vehicle, but it does have access provided by a droppable rear door, allowing for rapid deployment in combat zones, and the crew consists of a driver, gunner, and commander, each with access to a modern fire control system, night vision optics, and battlefield situational awareness tools. But what really sets this vehicle apart, as I'd mentioned in the beginning, is its modularity. The same chassis can be used for a variety of roles, including the ZSL-08 armored personnel carrier, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So, the ZSL is a direct variant of the ZBL designated for a simple but critical role, moving soldiers safely to the fight. While the ZBL-08 prioritizes firepower, the ZSL-08 focuses on troop capacity, making it an essential part of China's mechanized infantry formations. At first glance, the ZSL-08 looks very similar to the IFV variant, but key differences set it apart. The most notable change, a taller, more spacious troop compartment that allows the vehicle to carry up to 10 soldiers compared to the ZBL's 08 7-man capacity. And this is where, of course, we're looking at 2 different types of infantry fighting vehicle, but also kind of the same. But it's interesting that they've kind of created a larger troop capacity variant and a smaller troop capacity variant for this platform. It's a weird decision, in all honesty. I can't quite understand why they would do that. You'd think they'd standardize. I understand the form of modularity, but it just doesn't make sense to me. In terms of armament, the ZSL-08 is more lightly armed than the IFV counterpart. Instead of a 30mm autocannon, it features a 12.7mm heavy machine gun mounted on a compact open-top turret. This setup is designed for self-defense rather than direct combat, making the ZSL more of a pure battlefield taxi rather than a frontline combat vehicle IFV that the ZBL would be. Despite these changes, the ZSL-08 retains the same 440 horsepower engine with the similar amphibious capability and speeds. This means that both vehicles can operate alongside each other in combat, seamlessly deploying infantry and supporting them with firepower if necessary when they're needed most. Personally, I wouldn't differentiate between 2 different styles of vehicles. If you're going to make an IFV and have it able to fire and shoot back and support that infantry. Creating a pure battle bus, it might have its context, I guess, in Chinese doctrine, but for me it just didn't really make a huge amount of sense. The ZSL has also caught the attention of foreign buyers. Thailand and Venezuela have both incorporated the vehicle into their armed forces, and interest continues to grow. But China didn't stop with just troop carriers and IFVs. The Type 08 family includes specialized vehicles for command, reconnaissance, artillery. It's just literally so many different variants. The primary examples are a command and control vehicle. This variant features a raised superstructure and advanced communication equipment. There's the reconnaissance BRM variant equipped with a telescopic mast, radar, optoelectrical sensors, and provides real-time battlefield surveillance connecting the rest of the fleet if necessary. There's also self-propelled artillery, PLL-09 and the ST-1 fire support vehicle, and China has also developed mobile artillery on the Type 8 chassis, including the PLL-09 self-propelled howitzer with a 155mm gun, which has actually a very similar gun to the British L7 105mm cannon. There's also the anti-aircraft variant, or SWS-2, and this is an air defense system armed with a combination of autocannons and missile launchers offering an anti-air capability for the infantry if they're pushing up. With so many variants, the Type 8 family is probably one of the most adaptable wheeled combat platforms I would say in the world. Yes, there are other modular setups, but this is such a diverse kind of portfolio of how they can set up this chassis into whatever they want it to be. China has also aggressively marketed the Type 8 series to international buyers, offering a fairly cost-effective alternative to Western platforms like the Stryker or the Boxer. Some of the notable operators include Thailand, which has purchased over 70 vehicles, including IFVs and ARVs. Venezuela has integrated the VN1 IFV variant to its Marine Corps, and even Gabon has procured a small number of VN1 vehicles for its own armed forces. While the export success has been modest compared to Western alternatives, the Type 8 remains a very attractive option for many countries looking for an affordable and capable armoured vehicle in a wheeled configuration, with that powerful 30mm gun and the capacity of troops you can put inside of there, and it being amphibious. Smaller nations are really siding towards this vehicle. Of course though, how does it compare to other vehicles out there? Well, in all honesty, it's a very similar kind of setup in terms of equipment that are placed on many vehicles out there, but a lot more cheap. And when we talk about cheap, it's likely going to be fairly rough around the edges. When we talk about sophisticated optics and sophisticated optronics and systems that are going to improve targeting, it's hard to determine how accurate they are. The vehicle does not have stabilization, which kind of blew my mind. I think they're working on upgrades to stabilize that gun, but for the most part, it is not able to fire accurately at stabilization. It has to fire and then move. That kind of blew my mind a little bit, but it does have some pretty good protection. The turret is made of all-welded steel, mounted on an aluminum ceramic composite plate setup, providing with protection against shell splinters and 12.7mm armor-piercing incendiary rounds at 100 meters, and 25mm projectiles at the frontal arc at 1000 meters, which of course is going against the Bradley Bushmaster, which is what it's really being designed for, is to resist against the, potential risk of a Pacific conflict where vehicles like that would probably be engaging a vehicle like this. The vehicle is fitted with smoke dischargers and laser warning receivers to improve survivability for beam riders, and the vehicle is capable of all-weather operation particularly well during, the naval operations. It can operate in salty, nasty conditions where other vehicles would not do so well. It is suited for an amphibious assault. What interests me, particularly becoming from a AFV repair role in my previous trade in the Army and the British Army, is the mechanics of it all and how it's kind of broken up into 6 different modules, specifically in compartments or blocks of equipment that can be easily transitioned if they need to repair them. Engine module, transmission module, control module, suspension module, hull module, and weapon station module. And they all set up in a way that they can very quickly plug and play this equipment in and out if it gets damaged or needs repairing. To me, that's a big deal. I've worked on some pretty awful Cold War era British Army vehicles, and the equipment set up inside the structure of the vehicle was very difficult to work on, to get to. And although this vehicle was developed in the 1990s and went under testing in 2006 and is obviously in service today, they've really zeroed in on trying to make everything simple. If you need to replace it, it can be easily popped out, getting access to, and replace fast. And that's a big deal for something that is not going to forevermore be left in that setting of, oh, they're just expendable. They can just be blown up and move on. No, the Chinese are not that. That's a stereotype that doesn't really, I think, full truth anymore. Nowadays, they're looking after their crews, they're increasing their crew survivability, and they want to be able to repair their equipment and get it back on the road. It's not like the old doctrine of, we'll just keep sending vehicles, blow it up, and get another one. The vehicle Type 8 platform family is not doing that. I think it's actually doing the opposite. They're wanting to strategize, how can we get this vehicle quickly repaired and back up and functioning, which again is why I think they're going for a wheeled configuration rather than tracked in majority of their IFV fleet. They do have tracked IFVs, but this is a larger quantity in the wheeled setup, particularly, as I'd said, for an amphibious, assault or invasion if they needed to. So what do you think of this vehicle? I'd love to hear your comments in the comment section below. I try my best to read them as much as I can. Check the description box below for my links for if you want to support my channel financially, and thank you so much for being here. See you later.